back to Northwest Elite Spirit, the channel you come to train your mind, body, and spirit. I'm Coach Brian. If you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, do that now. This is going to be an evolution of some things that I was showing my students leading up to some light sparring a young lady did recently with the school nearby. We were going over some fundamentals. We're going over the jab, focusing on keeping your shoulder against your cheek and keeping your other hand up. Step jab, where when your foot and your jab land at the same time, maximizing the amount of force going into the opponent. If you go low, you come low and the hands up, shoulders against the cheek, stepping in. But we were also doing more of a relaxed snapping jab where you flick your elbow up and snap your hand out, and it's like a towel snapping out. So we're practicing that. Got this jab from Bill Superfoot Wallace. He's an old champion kickboxer who helped to revolutionize. Okay, I took this jab from Bill Superfoot Wallace, a champion kickboxer who fought at a karate style due to having injured one of his knees, and he could only throw on one side. And I borrowed this jab, or I began practicing jab because it's quick and it's efficient. And it's, a coach will say, or even I would say before, not to raise your elbow to throw the jab, because that's a signal. But when you think of it with that whip, it's a lot faster. And be here too. So throwing that jab. Getting the opponent to, if I jab the face a couple times, good, either fast or hard or both, getting the opponent to raise their hands, and so you can rip the body, or pummeling the body and getting them to drop their hands so you can rip the head type deal. And that culminated in faking a jab and throwing a side kick, also stolen or borrowed from Superfoot Wallace, and in kicking. And the next thing that we are pouring into is you can get them going and then freeze them up, and they'll leave that front leg hanging out there. And cutting the cutting kick into the opponent's lead leg. Or even you can come up and catch them around the sides a little bit. And it was interesting because their professor or their teacher, their sensei, their master, he saw that too, and he suggested that to our student at her match. When she was dropping dropping into that jab, she caught a young lady, and even on a couple of her up top jabs, she really stunned them. So we're going to work on that front kick, or that cutting kick, and we're going to work on throwing the jab and feinting to set things up. Things like that.
When you're practicing your slips and feints, actually practice like
Oh, yeah.
slip and feint.
Yeah. When you're practicing your slips and your feints, you have to practice them for real. So you're imagining an opponent who is trying to punch through your chin or through your head. So you have to slip and feint for real and have balance. Don't just be lazy. I mean, when you're younger, this hands down stuff will work later on. When you're a little older and a little slower, you're going to want your hands up, in my opinion. And if you want to keep that style, eventually try and learn a hands up style. You do both. Mixing, slipping, and feinting with pivots. Her overall footwork was pretty cool. Karate fighters, and they had a big area, and they're used to point sparring, so they're like all over the place, running away, looking for an opportunity to score a point. And she was not only plowing forward, but she was, and even like if they're far, because they get far away, and she could get close, get far away, get close. Yeah, she was doing all those things. It was pretty neat. So she was getting flustered. When she got flustered, she'd lose her footing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even if you want to do skinny horse, right? Like you teach skinny horse before.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah. Well, then eventually, it's more about where you keep the weight. So even if you're on a horse, you can, like, if you have the weight
just
in the right place, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It all kind of just flows together. Yeah. Show up at sparring. There was a miscommunication where I thought that sparring took place at 6 o'clock Thursday night, and that was wrong. It was 6 o'clock Friday night. Showed up Thursday, she was very nervous, even embarrassed that it didn't go down. Came back Friday, and she seemed to have gathered herself, and she had confidence in her eyes and in the way she walked and in the way she spoke. A little nervousness, which is okay, just means she's focused and wanting to do well. They're mainly practicing point sparring for karate, so they have a different style, but they do practice like rounds as well. What do they call it? Non-stop or something like that? Continuous. They call it continuous rounds. Their master and I met, and we talked about the rules of their dojo and where you hit, where you don't hit, what they're used to, what we all want to get out of the situation. We wanted 3 rounds against their easiest for my student, then mediocre or medium, and then the hardest round. And we wanted to place her in sparring in that order. She only got 2 options, so we went against a easier challenge. So I say challenge because challenge is important. Easier implies like this girl is less than, but it's not like that. It's just of the 2 on their team, who's more challenging, and you took the less challenging first. From the very beginning of the matches, she showed composure and confidence. You could if you looked in her face, you could see that she was up for sparring. Her footwork was very persistent, but smooth. It wasn't like a dogged, working really hard footwork. It was all the things we had learned, you know. Even just whatever is going to work to get you away or toward them and find your angles. She was doing that well. In pursuit, I'd like to see her use it to get inside next time. So instead of only having this option, also have this option and take advantage in those areas. She did find herself in those areas. Sometimes she capitalized on it. Other times she didn't. Their sensei, their master mentioned that she was being much nicer than he would have been had he been going against that opponent, and she caught one of his students with a body jab, and girl had to take a timeout. But she didn't say timeout right away. Their rules there are, if you're hurt and you need to stop, you say timeout. She didn't say timeout, so I would encourage my student to take advantage of that. Give that person let them decide if they're done or not. They have that option with the tap out. It'll make them better artists if you do go in on them. You don't have to clobber them. You just bop them up a little bit and show them something, this is what happens when you curl up in a ball or whatever. Kia, so karate fighters kia, and some other people make fun of it, but kia is very important. You might be told something you get really tired and some people say breathe, and you're like, how do I breathe? I'll tell you how to breathe. Kia. When you throw a strike, kia, you're breathing out, and you will be forced to take another breath. You will be forced to oxygenate your mind, and your body through kia. And the way I think about kia is the ki is the spring, and the ya is the spring flying through the air, right? So ki, and then ah. The ki is that initial force springing you into action, and the ah is relaxing through it, and settling back into your best balance, your best relaxation, your best state of mind. Kia also works for if you get hit, for absorbing impact. You keep, and your muscles will tense, and then so you can keep moving, and then again that will force you to take a deep breath, and do it again. Oxygen is good for your brain and your body, so if you're not breathing, you're not only taxing your body, you're taxing your brain, and that's going to make it harder for you to conduct yourself in a fight. And to me, when I breathe, it feels like I'm practicing intent and even confidence. It's expressing my intent and do something, and breathing always will help you to focus. So if you feel any sort of tenseness or confusion or the need to regather yourself, will help you refocus. She did get tired, but even though it was on 2-minute timers, some rounds went very long. They're used to, like, one person goes, tries to score a point, the other person blocks it, tries to score their own point, and they just do that back and forth. So they're not quite, I guess, I would think, tuned into like 2 minutes of continuous sparring. She showed a lot of endurance. Very tired in the end, but showed a lot of endurance. And when we sat down to talk afterwards, she wasn't negative at all. Just talked about what she needed to do, which was she felt she needed to breathe, figure out how to breathe. So what you can do to train for endurance in martial arts. Heavy bag drills. Heavy bags are great because you can hit them thousands and thousands of times and they don't break. So they're a great way to build endurance. One of my favorite drills for building endurance is pyramid drills. And you go through all of your strikes. And you start with the jab, hit it once. Make sure you're moving around. You don't have to be stationary just because you're on the heavy bag. So hit it once, move around, hit it twice, move around, hit it 3 times, up to 10. And then you move on to cross. And you do it both hands. So it'd be the same on this side. 1, 2, up to 10. This ends up building a lot of endurance. And then you would go with the combo, 1, 2. Move around, throw that combo twice, 1, 2, 1, 2. All the way up to 10. Body hook. Same pattern, all the way up to 10. It's almost like, so I hit it and I do footwork. And the footwork gives me a break from hitting it, gives me a break from footwork. And so that goes towards endurance. So instead of just standing here, 1, 1, 2, just wearing myself out, doing one movement, I do the movement, I get a little break. Do a new movement. Do the movement. Get a break. Do a new movement. And then that will help you endure. You can add all of your strikes to this. You go knee, around, knee, all the way up to 10. Roundhouse. All the way up to 10. If you get off balance, slow it down. If you're getting tired, you're doing it wrong, the key is to make it all the way through. Another awesome way to build your endurance towards martial arts is what I call heavy bag rounds. You can check out an older video of mine called heavy bag rounds where I run you through this. 12 rounds. Start by warming up with shadow boxing. 3 rounds of shadow boxing. Shadow boxing is meant for warming up, not for a heavy workout. You're getting loose. You're finding the pathways to whatever it is you're getting at. You're warming up the body. 2, heavy metal music, or any music that you like. I do it a lot with heavy metal, so I call it heavy bag rounds. Next 3 rounds are taking that looseness and that warmth you've got from your warm-up, and now you're going to pit-pat the bag for 3 rounds to the beat, non-stop. You're just going to throw as many strikes as you can for an entire song. Try to be as correct as you can within the movements, and you're just touching the bag. I say 1,000 times, but that's an arbitrary number. It's just to kind of help you wrap your mind around what we're looking for. 1,000 times. Then we do 3 rounds where you're smashing the bag for 3 rounds. So you to the music. But there's no way I could do what I was just doing for 3 rounds, like an 8-minute song. So I gotta say, now you don't have to be non-stop with these hard punches. You can take time. And then the next 3 rounds is pit-pat mixed with crashing. The aim is to take the flow and the crash of the music and use it to teach yourself how to flow and crash over long periods of time. Heavy metal, some of the songs get really long, so you might get up to like 8.5, 9-minute rounds. And you have to learn to just keep flowing and crashing no matter what. And then warm-up rounds is where you want to find that flow. You don't want to wait. The warm-up rounds is for dancing, getting loose, experimenting, finding those avenues. So when I'm shadow boxing, I'm like finding those avenues so I can do that later on, but like to the music. We'll work on pivoting more. There's lots of times where they were kind of tangled up in one another. Maybe the karate fighter had thrown a leg and was stuck here. And so our student was just stuck there, not knowing what to do. But you can step around things and take small angles and have a whole new look, perspective on somebody. Like, for instance, if I fought like this and you were here, just this small step here gives me an avenue up between these 2 hands, and then I cut, and that avenue is right there. But just a small pivot. So we'll be thinking about things like that as well. There were times when she was pressured and she would lose her footwork. And so somebody can be coming at us in just a small pivot, and we can bring them let them fall into a place more comfortable for us rather than just getting bowled over. Cut and pivot, let them buy, you can let them buy. Or you pivot, it's not just about letting them buy, it's also about like cutting those angles into those new avenues. What else? We'll talk about not freezing up when you get hit, even if it hurts, even if you're stunned, even if you're tired, not freezing up if you get hit. People too, they get stunned when they get hit, even if it's like you've seen it when I'm demonstrating like the speed, you know, like they get stunned by that, so we gotta like break that habit. Yeah, that's something you can drill. You gotta drill it. Yeah. And then there's a switch too, so like you use the drill to like, so they can hit a switch and realize that it's okay to like throw while they're throwing at you. I kind of talked about it in there, taking turns. We can talk about that first, and maybe that'll help with that idea.
Okay.
Right? Mm-hmm. They are plank fighters, so they almost were like taking turns. Like I go, and I wait for you, and you go. And that, for kickboxing, I think that's a bad idea. I think you should avoid being sucked into that sort of pattern. I also think you should use, if you find yourself in the pattern, use it to set a trap. Like you know what they're going to throw next, or when they're going to throw next, and use it against them. There's also a tendency to get sucked into throwing the same thing back and forth. So if your opponent's throwing kicks, now you've been sucked into throwing kicks. If your opponent is throwing haymakers, now you're throwing haymakers. Always stick to your game plan. As a coach, I like to see the athlete or performer flip that switch. And so Thursday night when we showed up, she was very nervous and almost curled up in herself. Didn't happen, went home embarrassed about how that all went down. Showed up Friday night and was a whole new person. Nice and calm, look in her eyes. Even if she was super nervous, she wasn't showing it. Showed up Friday night and she was a whole new person, plenty of confidence. Had like the eye of the tiger, went in there and performed well and endured all the way through. I'd say that she proved that she was tough, both mentally and physically. I like to take my students to other gyms, so I become friendly with the gyms around us so we can show up and all learn something. I ask my students when we get there to be respectful and follow the rules of the house. For instance, not allowed to hit in the face in karate, or in
the face.
Sparring. You're not allowed to hit in the face during sparring in karate, right? Mm-hmm. You can hit on the forehead, you can hit on the jaws, you can hit on the back of the head, not the entire back of the head. Can't hit across the spine or across the shoulders. Can't hit in the groin. Everything else is fair game. And it is my opinion that though those rules are rather restrictive, if you practice enough, you can develop the aim to hit wherever you want. So if they want to just be hitting the forehead, you've practiced enough to where you can do that all day. Their masters shared the same sentiment, and that's why they hit on the forehead or on the jaws, because if you can hit there, you can hit here, basically saying that through practice, we can strike anywhere we want. So though the coach and I went over the rules of their dojo and what's allowed and what's not allowed and what they're asking for, you as a student have to talk to the person, the individual that you're practicing with. You can talk about like what martial art you do, what you're looking to get out of the session, how hard you're willing to go. And as I said earlier, we had like an easier opponent. Show all opponents respect. Show the beginner and the master respect, because they're all going to help you out if you do. Once again, I'm Coach Brian with Northwest Elite Spirit, the channel you come to train your mind, body, and spirit. This has been Coaching, Kickboxing, Sparring. If you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, do that now. If you like the video, give it a like and comment below. If you know anybody else who'd be interested in my content, share it with them. As always, practice. You can find my book, The ABCs of Strength and Endurance, the essential handbook for strength and endurance, on Amazon and Kindle. Thank you.